The children's screams tore through Seoul's midnight air. 3 small bodies, triplet girls, barefoot and terrified. They ran across frozen concrete, Maya leading them, yanking her sisters forward. Mila's sobs came in broken gasps. Mina, the smallest, clutched a butterfly clip in one tiny fist. Their matching pink pajamas were shredded. Blood smeared their bare feet. Behind them, a voice barked, "Get back here!" The park stretched empty and dark. Skeletal playground equipment cast knife-edge shadows. Maya's lungs burned, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. Then, movement, near the fountain. A man, alone, on a bench. Everything about him whispered danger. Tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in an expensive charcoal suit that absorbed the shadows. A scar carved down his left cheek like a warning. But those eyes, even in the darkness, those eyes threw back amber gold. Wolf eyes. Maya made a choice. She sprinted straight for him, no hesitation. The man didn't move as 3 terrified children slammed into him. Maya grabbing his right hand, Mila his left, Mina wrapping both arms around his knee like a lifeline. He looked down. 6 eyes stared up at him. Identical faces, identical terror, identical wolf gold eyes catching light like fire. His own eyes. His breath stopped. Footsteps pounded closer. Marcus Reed burst from the tree line. He saw the Korean man and froze. Even furious, Marcus recognized an apex predator. The scarred man sat motionless, studying Marcus with eyes like winter ice. "I'm so sorry about this. Kids, you know. They ran off after I disciplined them. You understand how children are. They don't get that discipline is for their own good." Silence. Marcus shifted his weight. "In Korea, people understand this, right? That children need structure. I'm just trying to raise them properly. Come on, girls, let's go home." He reached for Maya's arm. "Dad, don't turn around." The Korean man went absolutely still. "Dad, please, don't let him take us." "Dad, please." The word hung in the air like a blade. Dad. Marcus's mask cracked. "Girls, that's not funny. This man is a stranger." "Your name." The voice was quiet, flawless, but the dragon had awakened. Marcus Reed has no idea he just touched the dragon's blood. The debt is about to be settled. If you want to see what happens next, please subscribe and join us for the rest of the story. We're glad to have you here. By the way, we're curious to see how far this story is traveling. Where are you watching from tonight? Feel free to share your city in the comments. It's great to see everyone checking in. Marcus hesitated. He looked at the shadows closing in around the park. "I don't see how that's relevant. These are children in my care." "Your name." 2 words, soft as silk, sharp as razors. Marcus recalculated. The suit alone cost more than Marcus made in 6 months. The scar, the bearing, and behind the man, shadows were moving. Car doors opening, silently, in the darkness. This wasn't just any Korean man. "Marcus Reed. I'm American. I live here in Seoul. These girls, their mother works for me. I'm watching them tonight while she's working." "Mother's name?" "Barbara Reed, my niece. Look, I understand how this looks, but everything is fine. The children misbehaved, I corrected them. They got upset and ran. That's all." The Korean man stood slowly. He was taller than Marcus realized, much taller. And the way he moved, balanced, coiled, suggested violence lived under his skin like a second heartbeat. "Where is the mother now?" "At home, working. I told you. I appreciate your concern, really, but you're a stranger. You don't know our family situation." "I understand many things." The man looked down at the girls again. Up close, those eyes were impossible to ignore. Golden brown with amber flecks. Striking. Haunting. Familiar in a way that made something ancient stir in his chest. He knelt to Maya's level. "Your name?" "Maya." "And your sisters?"
Mila and Mina, why did you call me Dad? Because Mama said if we ever needed help, look for the man with eyes like ours. Something flickered in those golden depths. See? Wild imaginations. They don't have a father. Their mother... Marcus caught himself. This is complicated family business. I don't owe a stranger explanations. You're right, but they're not leaving with you until I'm satisfied they're safe. You can't keep someone's children. That's kidnapping. I could call the police. Then call them. The man pulled out his phone and held it out. His voice stayed perfectly calm, but Spiel lived underneath. Please, explain to them why 3 small children ran barefoot through a park at midnight and grabbed a stranger rather than go with you. Marcus didn't take the phone. Behind him, more shadows gathered. More cars, more people, all watching with silent, professional interest. Marcus swallowed hard. Who are you? Someone who finds this situation unusual. Children don't typically choose strangers over family, unless family is worse. They're just upset. I disciplined them. What discipline requires children to run barefoot in October? They ran before I could get their shoes, and their feet are bleeding. Do you know how difficult it is to raise triplets? They are expensive, they require constant correction. So you corrected them hard enough to make them run. The man knelt again. His voice gentled as he looked at the little girls. Did he hit you tonight? 3 small nods. With his hand or something else? His belt, on our backs, our legs. The man's jaw tightened. It was a small movement, barely visible, but it was there. When he stood, the temperature in the park seemed to drop. Mr. Reed, I'm going to make this simple. These children stay with me until their mother collects them. You go home. Jinyuk stepped closer. If you've done nothing wrong, the mother will confirm it and you'll get them back. But if you have done something wrong, he smiled. It wasn't pleasant. Then we'll have a very different conversation. You can't do this. I have rights. I'm their legal guardian. Their mother owes me... He stopped, dead. Owes you? Owes you what? Nothing. Family business. Uncomplicate it. I don't owe you explanations. You're a stranger. You have no right. And yet, your family ran to me. Behind them, a man in silver-rimmed glasses pulled out a tablet, waiting. Jinyuk spoke a few words of rapid Korean, then looked back at Marcus. His smile was arctic. I'm having my people take the children somewhere safe, warm, where they can be fed and examined by a doctor. Then we're finding Barbara Reed. And if I refuse, you're not refusing. You're cooperating, because the alternative is that I become very interested in your family business. And trust me, Mr. Reed, you don't want my interest. Marcus looked at the shadows, the expensive cars, the men who moved like soldiers. He was trapped. He spat out an address in Itaewon. Jinyuk nodded, and his men vanished into the night. Your mother, is she all right? He locked her in the storage room. She told us to run. Every person in the park went stone still. She was misbehaving too. I needed her to calm down. You locked a woman in a storage room for her own safety because you were beating her children. Enough. Mr. Reed, I'm giving you a choice. Leave now voluntarily or stay and my people will ensure you stay. Which would you prefer? Marcus stared at him, at the scar, at the way the world seemed to bend around this man. Then recognition hit him like ice water. Who are you? The man smiled slightly. My name is Kong Jin Hyuk. Marcus's face went gray. Kong Jin Hyuk, the dragon of Gangnam, the man who controlled the underworld, the man who made people disappear. I didn't know. I didn't know that grabbing children in front of me was unwise? No, clearly not. Now, Are you leaving voluntarily? Or do my people need to encourage you? Marcus wanted to run. He wanted to grab the children and vanish, to salvage this nightmare. But the shadows were too many, the danger too real. I'll go, but those children belong with their family. Barbara will explain everything. I look forward to her explanation. Escort Mr. Reed home. Make sure he stays there. Two men stepped forward, not threatening, but immovable. Marcus looked at the triplets one last time. They pressed against Jin Hyuk like he was a shield, those impossible golden eyes watching Marcus with pure, unadulterated fear. You'll regret this when you realize you've interfered in legal, family business. We'll see. Barbara Reed sat in darkness. The storage room was small, airless. Zip ties cut into her wrists. Her lip was split. Her ribs screamed where Marcus had kicked her, but none of that mattered. The girls. Where were her girls? She had screamed at them to run. She told Maya to find the man with the scar, the man who sat alone on Sunday evenings, the man with eyes like theirs. God, she hoped the gamble would pay off. The storage room door burst open. Barbara flinched, expecting more violence, but it wasn't Marcus. Three strangers stood in the doorway. A woman, sharp-faced and professional, knelt beside her. Who are you? We're here to help. Kang Jin Hyuk sent us. Your daughters are safe. Barbara's world tilted. Jin Hyuk? The dragon? Yes. The girls found him in the park. They are being examined by a doctor now. Can you stand? Are they hurt? Did Marcus... Frightened, but unharmed. We need to move. Where are the documents? The papers Marcus made you sign. Barbara's mind spun. Jin Hyuk, the man from the cellar 6 years ago, the father of her children. He has them. The desk, second drawer. But the girls called him Dad. Why would they... Because they have his eyes, Miss Reed. Very unusual eyes. Golden brown with amber flecks. The same eyes as Kang Jin Hyuk. Barbara's knees nearly gave out. He knows. Somehow, he knows. We need to move. Kang Jin Hyuk wants to see you, and he has questions. Questions. Of course he did. 6 years ago. She had hidden a bleeding stranger in a cellar, one desperate night that resulted in 3 children with impossible eyes. And now, that stranger was the dragon of Gangnam, and he had questions. They brought Barbara to a private clinic, expensive, discreet, the kind of place that didn't ask questions and didn't keep records unless you wanted them to. Broken rib, severe bruising, lacerations, malnutrition. Dr. Yoon looked up from the charts. How long has this been happening? A long time, since I was 12. The beatings, they got worse after the girls were born. I'm documenting everything. Photographs, medical reports, for when the authorities get involved. Is Jin Hyuk angry? I've worked for him for 10 years, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at those 3 girls. How did he look at them? Like he was seeing ghosts. Jin Hyuk stood in the private waiting room, staring at 3 sleeping children. Maya, Mila, and Mina, curled together on a plush sofa, clean now, bandaged, and wrapped in soft blankets. They had held hands until sleep finally took them. The doctor checked them thoroughly, sir. Bruises consistent with belt strikes, signs of long-term stress, but no sexual abuse. The doctor was very clear. Jin Hyuk nodded. Something in his chest loosened. Sir, about the children's claim, they called you Dad. I heard. And their eyes, I saw. Wolf eyes. golden brown with amber flecks. My grandmother said they appear once every 3 generations in our family. I've never seen them on anyone else. Until tonight. Until tonight. I'm going to talk to Barbara Reed. I need to know if what I'm thinking is possible. Jin-Hyuk turned away from the sleeping triplets. His eyes were like winter stone. And if it is, then Marcus Reed has made the worst mistake of his life. Barbara stood in the hallway, staring at the door. Behind that door was the man she'd spent one desperate night with 6 years ago, the father of her daughters. The dragon was waiting. The dragon of Gangnam. Dr. Yoon touched her shoulder gently. He's not going to hurt you. How do you know? Because he's been standing in there for an hour watching your daughters sleep. The dragon doesn't watch people sleep. He makes them disappear. Dr. Yoon smiled slightly. Whatever else he is, he's not going to hurt the mother of children he's already protecting. Barbara took a shaky breath and pushed open the door. Jin-Hyuk stood by the window, his back to her. Tall, broader than she remembered. The expensive suit, the scar, the bearing. Everything screamed danger. But when he turned, his eyes were the same. Golden brown with amber flecks. Wolf eyes. The same eyes watching her from the sofa where 3 small girls slept. "Ms. Reed," Jin-Hyuk said quietly, "thank you for coming." Barbara's voice came out hoarse. "Thank you for saving them." "I haven't saved anyone yet. I've only delayed the inevitable." He studied her face. The swelling, the bruises, the split lip. Something flickered in his expression. "But I have questions, and I need honest answers." "Okay. Have we met before?" The question hung in the air. Barbara looked at the sleeping children, at their impossible eyes, at the man who'd given them those eyes and disappeared. "Yes," she whispered. Jin-Hyuk went very still. "Where?" "A cellar in Itaewon, 6 years ago." Barbara's voice shook. "You were bleeding, shot. You said your brother." "You hid me." Jin-Hyuk's voice was barely audible. "You stitched my wound with dental floss and vodka. You kissed me before you left money, said you'd come back. But you didn't." "No, you didn't." Barbara looked at the girls. "And 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant. Triplets." Jin-Hyuk stared at the 3 small forms on the sofa. The universe clicked into sharp, terrible focus. "They're 5 years old?" His voice was controlled, but something underneath was fracturing. 5 years and 2 months. The math was perfect, the timing exact, the eyes undeniable. Jin-Hyuk had daughters. 3 of them. And he'd missed everything. "I looked for you for months after I found out, but Marcus watched me constantly, and you'd vanished like a ghost. I thought maybe you'd died, until I started seeing you in the park every Sunday evening, just sitting there." "How long have you been watching me?" 6 months, maybe more. I was too afraid to approach. What if you didn't remember? What if you didn't want children? What if you thought I was trying to trap you?" Jin-Hyuk looked at the sleeping girls, at Maya's small hand clutching Mila's, at Mina's butterfly clip beside her on the cushion. "Why did you tell them to find me tonight?" Barbara's laugh was bitter. Desperation. Marcus was... It was getting worse. The threats, the violence.
He kept talking about opportunities for the girls, about how their eyes would be useful, how mixed children could make money. And I knew what he meant, what he was planning. She wiped her eyes. So I gambled everything on the hope that a man I spent one night with 6 years ago would see 3 children with his eyes and feel something, anything. And if you hadn't been there...
Then my daughters would have run until Marcus caught them, and I would have failed them completely. Jin-hyuk was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the sofa and knelt beside the sleeping children, studied their faces, their small hands, their impossible eyes. "Tell me about Marcus," he said quietly. "Everything, from the beginning." Barbara sat down slowly, her broken rib protesting. "He's my uncle, my father's older brother. When my parents died, car accident, I was 12, Marcus came to the funeral, said he'd take care of me, that family takes care of family. And you believed him." "I was 12 and alone. What else could I believe?" Barbara's voice hardened. "He brought me to Korea, said he had a business opportunity, that he'd give me a home until I was old enough to support myself. I thought he was being kind. But he wasn't. He made me work. Light chores, he called it. Cleaning, cooking, laundry. Normal things at first. But it kept expanding. More work, harder work, and he kept track, how much it cost to feed me, house me, clothe me. He'd say it casually, like a joke. 'You're eating well tonight, Barbara. That's another 1,000 won on your tab.'" Jin-hyuk's jaw tightened. "When I turned 18, he sat me down with papers, all in Korean. I couldn't read them. He said they were standard work papers, that I was agreeing to work for him to pay back what he spent raising me. 50 million won, he said, plus interest. And you signed. What choice did I have? No money, no education, no family except him. And he made it sound so reasonable. Just a few years of work, Barbara, then you'll be free. Family helps family, right?" She laughed bitterly. "So I signed. And then you got pregnant." Barbara's hands trembled. "I met you that night, the cellar. You were so different from Marcus. Gentle, honest. You didn't lie or manipulate. You just needed help. And I gave it. And for one night, I felt human instead of owned. And I left." "You left." Barbara looked at him. "I don't blame you. You were running for your life. Your own brother tried to kill you. Of course you disappeared. But I wish..." Her voice broke. "I wish I'd told you my name. Wish I'd made you promise to find me. Wish I'd done anything except kiss you and watch you vanish." Jin-hyuk stood slowly, walked to the window, stared out at Seoul's glittering lights. "When did Marcus find out about the pregnancy?" 3 months in. I couldn't hide it anymore. He was furious, screaming about how I'd ruined everything, how no one would want damaged goods, how I'd destroyed my value. Barbara's voice dropped. Then he found out it was triplets, and his anger changed to something else, calculation. He started researching, found out mixed children, especially unusual-looking ones, were in demand for modeling, entertainment, other things. Trafficking. He never said it outright, but I knew. The way he'd show me photos of successful mixed children, the way he'd talk about opportunities and investments, the way he'd mention how expensive it was to raise 3 children and how they'd need to contribute eventually. Barbara looked at her sleeping daughters. When I said no, when I refused to let him use them, he started beating me, said I was ungrateful, said he could throw us all out any time, said no one would help a black woman with 3 bastard children. Bastard. Jin-hyuk's voice was ice. He called them bastards. All the time. Told them they had no father, that their mother was a prostitute who sold herself to a Korean man, that they were worthless, shameful, burdens. My tears fell freely, and they believed him. My beautiful, brilliant daughters believed they were mistakes. Jin-hyuk turned from the window. His eyes were empty of everything except cold calculation. "Marcus said you owe him money, that it's a family debt, that you agreed to work it off. That's what he tells everyone. That's what the papers say. But the debt is fake." "Blink? How did you..." Because I've been listening to liars my entire life. Marcus Reed is a particular type, the kind who believes his own story, who thinks that because he bought you a plane ticket and fed you for 6 years, he owns you, that your labor, your life, your children all belong to him as repayment. Jin Hyuk's voice was soft, deadly. He's not even a good criminal. He's just a small, petty man who found a vulnerable child and spent 14 years exploiting her.
Barbara stared at him.
You believe me? Just like that?
I believe the evidence. 3 terrified children running barefoot through a park, a woman locked in a storage room, medical evidence of long-term abuse, and a man who refused 50 million won because he wanted you to keep working instead of being free. Jin Hyuk walked to the sofa and looked down at the sleeping girls again. But there's one more thing I need to know.
What?
Are they mine? He looked up, and for the first time, Barbara saw something other than ice in his eyes. Something vulnerable. These 3 girls? Are they my daughters? Barbara met his gaze steadily.
Yes, you're the only man I've ever been with. The only one. That night in the cellar, that was my first time. My only time. These girls are yours, Jin Hyuk. I've never doubted it.
Jin Hyuk closed his eyes, breathed slowly. When he opened them, the vulnerability was gone, replaced with something harder, more dangerous. Then we have a problem, he said quietly. What kind of problem? The kind of man who has spent 5 years abusing my daughters and planning to sell them, where he's beaten and enslaved their mother under fraudulent pretenses, where he's committed crimes that demand consequences. Jin Hyuk looked at Barbara. But before I deliver those consequences, I need to be certain. I need proof that can't be questioned or denied. You want a DNA test? Yes. Barbara nodded slowly. And if it proves they're yours? Jin Hyuk's smile was colder than winter. Then Marcus Reed will learn what happens to people who threaten the dragon's family. Dr. Yoon collected DNA samples at midnight. Cheek swabs for the girls. Maya woke briefly, confused, but calmed when she saw her mother. It's okay, baby, Barbara whispered. Just a quick test. A blood draw for Jin Hyuk. He didn't flinch. Results in 6 hours, Dr. Yoon said. But sir, those eyes... I know, Jin Hyuk said quietly. But I need proof, for legal purposes, for the children's sake, for everything that comes next. Dr. Yoon nodded and left. Jin Hyuk stood in the hallway with Barbara, both watching the sleeping children through the window. What happens now? Barbara asked quietly. Now you rest. The girls rest. I've arranged rooms for you here. Dr. Yoon runs this clinic personally, and it's secure. Marcus can't get to you. Jin Hyuk paused. Tomorrow, depending on the test results, we decide what comes next. And Marcus? Is being watched. My people are very good at ensuring cooperation. Barbara was quiet for a moment. Jin Hyuk, I need to know something. What? If the test proves they're not yours, if somehow I'm wrong about that night, if the timing isn't what I think, what happens to us? Jin Hyuk looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman who'd survived 14 years of exploitation, raised 3 children alone, and still found the courage to gamble everything on a stranger's mercy. Even if they're not mine biologically, he said slowly, they chose me tonight. They ran to me. They called me Dad. That means something. He paused. And Marcus Reed is still a trafficker who's been exploiting a woman and children for years. That doesn't change regardless of paternity. So you'll still help us. I'll still help you. Barbara's eyes filled with tears. Why? Because they grabbed my hand and asked me to walk. Because you sent them to find me even though you had no guarantee I'd help. Because... Jin Hyuk stopped. Because somewhere between that cellar 6 years ago and this moment,
You became someone I couldn't walk away from, even if I wanted to. Barbara reached out slowly and touched his hand, just briefly. Thank you. Jinyuk looked down at where she'd touched him. Get some rest, Barbara. Tomorrow, everything changes. The DNA results came at 6:47 a.m. Jinyuk was alone in his study when Dr. Yoon called. The results, he asked without preamble. Dr. Yoon's voice was steady. 99.9% probability of paternity. All 3 girls, Maya, Mila, and Mina, are your biological daughters, Kang Jinyuk. Jinyuk closed his eyes. He had daughters. 3 of them. 5 years old. And he'd missed everything. Sir? Dr. Yoon's voice was gentle. Are you all right? No, Jinyuk said honestly. But I will be. Thank you, Dr. Yoon. He ended the call and sat in silence. Then he stood, walked to his safe, and pulled out a file. The file contained information on Marcus Reed, everything Min Jun and his team had gathered in the last 12 hours. It was damning. The fake debt, the fabricated loan, the contract written in Korean to deceive an 18-year-old girl, the network of contacts and child exploitation, the 14 years of systematic abuse. But there was more.
Much more. Jinyuk read it all. Then he picked up his phone and made a series of calls. When he finished, he called Minjun. Bring Marcus to the secondary location, the private one. No witnesses, no records. His voice was winter ice. And tell him I want to discuss his family business, every detail, every crime, everything. Yes, sir. What should we tell him about the children? Tell him the truth. Tell him they're mine. Tell him he spent 5 years abusing and planning to sell the daughters of Kang Jinyuk. Jinyuk smiled, cold and dangerous. And then tell him I'd like to have a very civilized conversation about consequences. Minjun was quiet. Sir, when you say civilized, I mean exactly that. Civilized, legal, by the book. Jinyuk's smile widened. For now. But Minjun, sir, make sure he understands that cooperation is his only option. Because if he lies to me even once, if he tries to protect anyone or anything in his network, then I stop being civilized. And then he learns what the dragon does to people who threaten his children. Understood, sir. Jinyuk ended the call and looked out at Seoul's awakening skyline. Somewhere in this city, Marcus Reed was about to have the worst day of his life, and Jinyuk was going to make sure it was just the beginning. They brought Marcus to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul, not the kind of place that appeared on maps, not the kind of place police bothered checking, the kind of place where people went to disappear. Marcus sat in a metal chair, hands zip-tied behind him. The room was bare, except for the chair, a table, and a single overhead light. He'd been sitting here for 2 hours, alone. That was the worst part. The waiting, the silence, the knowledge that Kang Jinyuk, the dragon, was coming. The door finally opened. Jinyuk walked in alone, no guards, no weapons visible, just a man in an expensive suit carrying a manila folder. But the way he moved, predator smooth, perfectly balanced, made Marcus's throat go dry. Jinyuk sat across from him, set the folder on the table, didn't open it. Mr. Reed, do you know why you're here? Marcus's voice came out hoarse. The children, but I can explain. I'm sure you can. You seem very good at explaining things. Jinyuk's eyes were empty of everything except ice. But before we get to that, I have some news. The DNA results came back this morning. Marcus went very still. Maya, Mila, and Mina are my biological daughters. 99.9% certainty.
Jinyuk's voice stayed perfectly calm, which means you've spent the last 5 years abusing and planning to sell the children of Kang Jinyuk. Do you understand what that means? Marcus's face went gray. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know they were yours. No, you didn't, because if you had, you would have been much more careful. Jinyuk leaned forward slightly. But ignorance isn't innocence, Mr. Reed. You still beat them. You still locked their mother in a storage room. You still planned to sell them. I wasn't going to sell them. It was discipline, that's all. Jinyuk opened the folder, pulled out a document, slid it across the table. Marcus looked down. It was a contract, written in Korean and English, his signature at the bottom. This is the contract you had Barbara sign when she turned 18, the one claiming she owed you 50 million won. Jinyuk's voice was soft. But here's the interesting thing, Mr. Reed. I had my lawyers examine it, and according to Korean law, this contract is void, completely unenforceable. Do you know why? Marcus said nothing. Because you can't create debt for raising a minor. Because you can't charge interest rates of 300%. Because you can't use coercion to force someone to sign a contract they can't read. Jinyuk smiled. It wasn't pleasant. In other words, Mr. Reed, you've been holding Barbara in fraudulent servitude for 14 years. That's human trafficking under Korean law. Minimum sentence, 7 years. Marcus's hands trembled. It's not trafficking. She's family. I was taking care of her. Taking care of her? Jinyuk pulled out another document. Medical records. These are Dr. Yoon's findings from last night. Broken rib, severe bruising, malnutrition, signs of long-term physical abuse dating back years. Is this how you take care of family, Mr. Reed? She was difficult sometimes. I had to discipline. There's that word again. Discipline. Jinyuk's eyes narrowed. Let me be very clear, Mr. Reed. What you did to Barbara and those children wasn't discipline. It was abuse. Systematic, long-term abuse designed to break them down and make them compliant. That's not family, that's ownership. Marcus's voice rose. I don't understand. I gave up everything for them. I brought Barbara to Korea, I fed her, I housed her for years, and then she got pregnant with those bastards, and I had to take care of them, too. Do you know how expensive triplets are? I sacrificed everything. Jinyuk was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out another document. This, he said softly, is very interesting. This is a list of your contacts, people you've been corresponding with over the last 3 years. And do you know what I found when my people started investigating these contacts? Marcus said nothing. They're all involved in child exploitation. Some run modeling agencies that traffic children. Some run adoption services that sell children to wealthy families. Some run entertainment companies that use children for less savory purposes. Junhyak's voice went deadly soft. And you've been in regular contact with all of them, discussing opportunities, discussing unique inventory, discussing 3 mixed-race girls with unusual eyes. Marcus's face went white. I was just exploring options. I wasn't actually going to. Exploring options. Junhyuk pulled out more papers, transcripts of your conversations. Let me read you some highlights, shall we? He read slowly, each word landing like a hammer. The triplets are 5 now, old enough to be trained. Their eyes are very unusual, golden brown, should command premium prices. Mixed children with unique features are in high demand. I have 3. Interested parties should contact me directly. Training is going well. They're learning to be obedient. A few more months and they'll be ready for placement. Marcus made a strangled sound. Those messages, they're out of context. I wasn't serious. Jin-hyuk kept reading. How much for all three? I'm thinking 10 million won each. Negotiable for the right buyer. 10 million won each. Marcus had put a price on Jin-hyuk's daughters. The room went very, very quiet. Jin-hyuk set down the papers, looked at Marcus with eyes like winter death. 10 million won each, he said softly. That's what you think my daughters are worth. I wasn't actually going to... It was just talk. Just talk. Jin-hyuk pulled out more documents. Emails, photos, transaction records. Then explain these. Explain why you have photos of my daughters in various poses. Explain why you've been researching preparation protocols for child trafficking. Explain why those tickets include 3 children. Marcus's breathing came in short, panicked gasps. You can't prove I was actually going to go through with it. I don't need to prove intent. I have evidence of conspiracy, of planning, of actively negotiating sales. Jin-hyuk's voice stayed perfectly calm. But here's where it gets interesting, Mr. Reed, because I kept digging. And do you know what I found?
What? Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. This isn't your first time, is it? Marcus went absolutely still. Jin-hyuk pulled out another folder. This one was thicker. Much thicker. Over the last 15 years, you've been in contact with 12 different families, 12 sets of parents who trusted you with their children. And those children, Jin-hyuk opened the folder, they disappeared. Marcus made a strangled sound. Let me tell you about them. Jin-hyuk pulled out the first file. Sarah Kim, age 7 when she vanished. Her parents said she was staying with you for the summer. You said she ran away. Police never found her. He pulled out another file. Marcus Chen, age 6. You said you were taking him on a trip. He never came back. His parents filed a missing persons report. Nothing. Another file. Twins, Emma and Ethan Park, age 8. Their mother left them with you while she worked overseas. When she came back, you said they'd been adopted by a nice family. But there's no adoption record, no paperwork, nothing. Jin-hyuk spread the files across the table. 12 children, 12 faces, all missing, all last seen with Marcus Reed. You've been doing this for years, Jin-hyuk said quietly, finding vulnerable families, offering to help, gaining their trust, and then, he gestured to the files, the children disappear, and you walk away with cash. Marcus was shaking now, full body tremors. Those cases you can't prove. I don't need to prove all of them. I just need to prove one. Jin-hyuk's smile was razor thin. And I have 12 to choose from. He leaned forward. So here's what's going to happen, Mr. Reed. You're going to tell me everything. Every detail, every name, every transaction, every child. Where they went, who bought them, how much you made. I can't. They'll kill me. They might, but I definitely will if you don't cooperate. Jin-hyuk's voice went soft, deadly. Because right now, you have exactly one chance to make this slightly less terrible for yourself. And that chance involves complete, total, absolute honesty. Marcus's breathing was coming in gasps now, panic setting in. If I tell you everything, what happens to me? You go to prison for a very long time, but you go alive. You get a trial, you get due process, you get to keep breathing. Jin-hyuk's eyes were empty. If you don't cooperate, if you lie to me even once, then I stop being civilized, and you learn what happens to people who hurt my family. The threat hung in the air. Marcus looked at the files spread across the table, at the evidence,
at the man who controlled half of Seoul's underworld. He was trapped. Completely, utterly trapped. "What do you want to know?" he whispered. "Everything," Jin-yuk said. "Start with the first child and don't leave anything out." The confession took 4 hours. Marcus talked and talked and talked. At first, it came in broken pieces, small admissions, half-truths, desperate attempts to minimize his role. But Jin-yuk was patient. Every time Marcus tried to deflect or downplay, Jin-yuk would pull out another document, another piece of evidence, another photo. And slowly, the full horror emerged. The first one was an accident, Marcus said, his voice hoarse. "Sarah Kim. Her parents owed me money. A lot of money. They couldn't pay, so they offered her. Said I could adopt her, use her for work until the debt was paid. I thought they meant housework. But then this man approached me, said he knew buyers, said mixed Asian children were valuable. I didn't know what he meant at first, but then he explained the numbers." Jin-yuk's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. 10 million won, Marcus continued, his voice shaking. 10 million. I'd never seen that kind of money. And Sarah's parents had basically given her to me anyway, so I thought it wasn't really wrong. They'd already sold her to me in a way. I was just redirecting the transaction. "So you sold her?" "Yes," Marcus's voice cracked. "To a man in Thailand. He said she'd be used for entertainment, modeling. I didn't ask what kind." Jin-yuk pulled out a notepad. "Name?" "I don't remember." Jin-yuk's eyes went cold. "We talked about honesty, Mr. Reed." Marcus swallowed hard. "Park. Mr. Park. That's all I knew him as. We met in Itaewon." "When?" 15 years ago. August." Jin-yuk wrote it down. "Continue." Marcus kept talking. The pattern emerged. Always the same. Find vulnerable families, immigrants, people in debt, single parents desperate for help. Offer to take the children temporarily, gain trust, and then connect with buyers. The twins, Emma and Ethan, they were different. Their mother was dying, cancer. She thought she was leaving them with family. She died thinking they were safe with me. And I sold them 3 weeks later. 15 million won each. 30 million won for 2 children. Jin-yuk's hand tightened on his pen, but his voice stayed calm. "Where did they go?"
Japan. A man named Tanaka. He ran some kind of entertainment business. I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to know. But you knew. Yes. Marcus's voice was barely audible. I knew. Jin-yuk kept writing. Names. Dates. Locations. Prices. Building a case. Building evidence. Building an airtight prosecution that would bury Marcus Reed for the rest of his life. "And my daughters?" Jin-yuk asked quietly. "What was your plan for them?" Marcus hesitated. "Don't," Jin-yuk said softly. "Don't make me ask twice." Marcus's voice shook. "There's a man in Bangkok. He specializes in unique children, mixed race, unusual features. He pays premium prices. When I saw the girl's eyes, those golden eyes, I knew he'd want them. I contacted him 2 years ago, started preparing. Preparing how? Training them, making them obedient, teaching them not to cry, not to complain, breaking them down so they'd be easier to handle.
Marcus's face crumpled. I was supposed to deliver them next month. He'd already paid a deposit. 5 million won per child. 15 million won. Deposit only. Jinyuk's jaw tightened until it hurt. And the final price? Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. 10 million won, each, upon delivery. 30 million won total. Marcus had planned to sell Jinyuk's daughters for 30 million won. The room went silent. Jinyuk stood slowly, walked to the window, stared out at Seoul's gray skyline. When he spoke, his voice was softer than silk, more dangerous than a blade. You were 3 weeks away from selling my daughters, 3 weeks from putting them on a plane to Bangkok, 3 weeks from destroying their lives completely. I didn't know they were yours, Marcus sobbed. I swear if I'd known. If you'd known, you would have been more careful, but you still would have done it. Jinyuk turned. Because you've done it 12 times before. 12 children, 12 families destroyed, and you were going to do it again. Marcus said nothing, just sat there, trembling. Jinyuk walked back to the table, sat down, looked at the broken man across from him. I want the name of every buyer, every contact, every person in your network, and I want the Bangkok buyer's information. Everything you have. If I give you that, they'll kill me. You don't understand. These people... I understand perfectly. They're predators, and you helped feed them. Jinyuk's eyes were empty. But here's the thing, Mr. Reed. Right now, I'm the predator you should be worried about. So give me the names, or I'll give you to my people, and they'll extract the information less gently. Marcus looked at him, saw the truth in those cold eyes, and broke. He gave up everything. Names, locations, contact information, bank accounts, transaction records, everything. Jinhik wrote it all down. When Marcus finally ran out of names, Jinhik set down his pen. One more thing, he said quietly. What? I've already made some calls while you were confessing. Jinhik pulled out his phone, showed Marcus the screen. This is your bank account. Or rather, it was. As of 2 hours ago, it's empty. Every won you made from selling children has been seized and donated to anti-trafficking organizations and victims' funds. Marcus stared at the screen. You can't. I can, and I did. Jinhik pulled up another screen. This is your property deed for your apartment. It's been transferred to Barbara Reed. She owns it now. You're homeless. That's illegal. So is human trafficking. So is fraud. So is child abuse. Jinhik pulled up another screen. This is your contact list. Every single person you've ever done business with. I've sent their information to Interpol, the Korean National Police, the FBI, and several anti-trafficking NGOs. They're all being investigated as we speak. Marcus's face went white. They'll know I gave them up. They'll kill me. Probably. Jinhik's smile was cold. But that's not my problem. My problem was making sure you could never hurt another child. And as of this morning, you can't. Your money is gone. Your network is exposed. Your contacts are being arrested. Your entire operation is destroyed. He leaned forward. You don't just get to disappear, Mr. Reed. You don't get to vanish quietly and start over somewhere else. You're going to face every mother, every father, every child you sold in open court, in public, where everyone can see what you are. Marcus made a strangled sound. Please, I'll do anything. I'll cooperate completely. Just don't... Don't what? Don't make you face consequences? Jinhik stood. You're going to prison, Mr. Reed, for the rest of your life, and every single day you're going to remember the children you sold, the families you destroyed, the lives you ruined." He walked to the door, paused. "And you're going to remember that you tried to sell my daughters, the daughters of Kang Jin-hik, and that's the mistake that ended everything." He opened the door. 2 police officers stood outside, real police, not Jin-hik's people. "Marcus Reed, you are under arrest for human trafficking, fraud, child abuse, and conspiracy to commit human trafficking. You have the right to remain silent." Marcus barely heard the rest, just sat there, zip ties cutting into his wrists as they read him his rights. Jin-hik watched for a moment, then turned and walked away. Behind him, Marcus started screaming, begging, pleading.
He closed his eyes and held them, these 3 small miracles, these daughters he'd never known he had, these children who'd grabbed his hand in a dark park and changed his entire world. "You're stuck with me, all of you, for as long as you want." "Forever?" "Forever." Behind them, Barbara watched, tears streaming down her face, and for the first time in 14 years, they felt like a family. Not a perfect one, not a normal one, but theirs. Even a dragon has a heart, and tonight we saw it beat for the first time. Thank you so much for listening to this journey of debt, blood, and a father's discovery. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and join our community. We're building a family of our own here, and we'd love for you to be part of the next chapter. Before we close the doors on the dragon's home for tonight, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. We're reading them all, and it's truly amazing to see how far the story has traveled. From our family to yours, thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next one.